I like that man that just spoke. Thank you for coming tonight. I am glad to be here. It's somewhat scary sharing in front of a large group of people, but I think it's so important to offer a realistic picture of the peace and joy that is attainable in a marriage, even when a pornography addiction exists. That peace and joy has only come for us as we have committed to do the hard work of therapy, recovery, looking at ourselves, surrendering our weaknesses, being completely honest with each other, and forgiving ourselves and others. I would ask that if you do recognize my husband or myself, that you respect our privacy in sharing with others. We learned early on a rule for sharing our story with others. If sharing doesn't help us or the other person, then don't share it. Please respect our privacy and our identity. If we want someone to know our identity, then we will share it with that person. On the other hand, please share our story of hope and recovery. Too often we hear of the outcomes of divorce, separation, and family breakups that come with addiction. While those are true and very painful, there are stories of hope and happiness, and that is why we are here tonight. I met the man behind me in September 2005 and soon realized I was in love, different than I had felt before. We talked so easily about everything, and we shared the same interests. Shortly after we met, he disclosed to me that he'd recently begun attending a 12-step anonymous group for pornography addiction. I remember thinking quickly back to what I knew about addiction, what I knew about pornography, and what I even knew about sex, which wasn't that much. Somehow, I didn't feel the urge to run away. I still loved him. What this did to me was put the brakes on heavily to any decisions that I wanted to make. We lived in separate states, and I had looked into moving to where he lived, but that didn't feel right. Neither did talking about marriage, but neither did breaking up. Through a respected leader, I was introduced to a therapist who specialized in pornography addiction. He's sitting behind me, actually. I called him to get some information. I asked such basic questions like, can people change? Do they change? How long does it take? Etc. To make a long story short, it soon became clear that we needed to be near each other and begin therapy if we were going to continue dating. So this man quit his job, left his family and friends, and moved to Utah in January of 2006. I appreciated his honesty with me and his willingness to give up whatever he needed to in order to hopefully make some positive changes. We started therapy that January and were told it was probably wise not to make any major decisions for a year or so. That took the pressure of even thinking of marriage off the table. We figured we'd both be better for going through this, even if we didn't stay together or end up getting married. We were one out of very few dating couples in the therapy program. Most were married, and most wives found out after they were married. A lot of them caught their husbands in the addiction. I felt like some of these women thought I was nuts for going through this without even the commitment of marriage. But we had a very strong relationship of trust. I trusted him. I trusted that he would be truthful to me, not that he would be perfect and never have a mistake, and that was important. We set similar boundaries as other couples. If he did have a mistake, he had 24 hours to tell me about it. Oftentimes I would get upset and take it personal at first, and it was hard for him to tell me, but he did each time. We were in therapy first as a couple for 6 weeks, and then me with other women and he with other men weekly for a year and a half. I met individually with a therapist once a month, and through that whole process realized I had a lot of my own issues to work on, whether my boyfriend was an addict or not. I learned of some family secrets in my own family through this process. I believe that through my own therapy and recovery, working on me without worrying about him, I was able to process and work through my own fears. We were engaged about 8 months after we began therapy and married 3 months later. We continued in weekly therapy our first year of marriage. We both graduated our therapy programs. My husband still attends a weekly 12-step group, and we attend a monthly couples group. Recovery is a regular word in our home, as is addiction. These words no longer bring fear or panic to my mind like they once did. They bring peace and hope. At first, marriage and sex added an interesting dynamic to our relationship. Our normal newlywed struggles were often attributed to addiction rather than just to life, and we have learned to put those into perspective. I believe I'm a better person for having gone through this with my husband, and we started our marriage on a healthy, trusting foundation. That's our story up until now. We have a great working marriage and continue to learn together and appreciate and love each other. We definitely have our ups and downs, and some days we feel like we're back where we started, but we're nowhere near that. We are equals, and we both feel lucky to have each other. We both feel that our therapy has given us new tools to use not only in our marriage relationship, but in parenting, other relationships, and life's joys and challenges.